Hello and welcome to Nikolai's genetics lessons, and today I got a problem from one of my subscribers from India, and this is very interesting problem, and this video is probably going to be longer than most of my videos, so I recommend you to pour a cup of tea or coffee and you can relax and just watch this video. Of course you may try to solve this problem on your own first. And in this video I'm going to give you not an answer just for how to solve this problem, but many other problems that involve application of rules of probability and statistics in genetics. I would tell you that probably the logic of this problem would cover 90% of the probability problems in genetics. And in this video I'm not going to use formulas because if you don't use formulas over and over again, it is very easy to forget something that you don't use in daily life. But today I'm going to show you how to solve this problem using logic, and logic is something that is much easier to memorize and use on any of the analogous examples. So here is a problem. Hemophilia is a recessive X-linked trait in humans. If a heterozygous woman has children with normal men, what are the odds of following combination of children? And here two questions. Question P, an unaffected daughter or son, and question second or Q, 2/5 offspring that are affected. So I would use green color to underline the first question, and our answers today are combinatory answers, so consist of two parts. This is answer for the first question. I would underline with green color, and this question I will underline with blue color. So here would be answer for the second question. So we have to choose answers that have two correct answers. So the first part would be very easy. We are told that hemophilia is recessive X-linked trait, and we are told that woman is heterozygous and man is normal. So genotype of the female would be XX, and I would use green color to designate normal X chromosome and red color to designate defective X chromosome. Of course, not the whole chromosome would be defective, it would have a defective gene, but for simplicity I would use red color for the whole chromosome. And genotype of the male would be normal X chromosome, male is normal, and normal Y chromosome. And when we build the Punnett square, we can predict all the possible genotypes and phenotypes in their progeny. So here we would have two normal X chromosomes, two normal X chromosomes from the mother side, and normal Y chromosome from the father side. And here we would have defective X chromosome from the mother side, normal chromosome from the father side, once again defective X chromosome from the mother side, and normal Y chromosome from the father side. And as you see, we would have 50% of the progeny females, another 50% of the progeny males. None of the females would be affected because this female here, she's a carrier. Her one defective gene would be balanced with normal gene. So this normal X chromosome would produce normal protein, and this would be enough. This is recessive genetic disorder. But this male is unfortunately would have this genetic disorder, though it is recessive genetic disorder, but males doesn't have another X chromosome to balance this recessive genetic disorder, so we call males hemizygous for this pair of genes, because males has only one X chromosomes. So that means that 50% of the males would be affected. And the first question is we have to find an affected daughter or son. What is the probability for this couple to have an affected daughter or son? It is a little bit confusing. One way would be to add this 50% plus this 25%, and we are going to get 75% or 3/4. So this genotype here would be defective. This is going to be 1/4, and these three genotypes represent normal phenotypes. That is going to be 3/4. And now we can cross out those answers that doesn't have these numbers. For example, answer A give us answer for this question P. 1/4 would be unaffected daughter or son, or in other words we can say what is the probability that this couple would have an affected child without reference to the sex of the child, and the answer is 3/4. So we can cross out this answer completely because it gives an answer that this is going to be 1/4. This is not true. We also can cross out answer D. This is not also 3/4. That this is not 75% or 0.75. We also can say that 3/4 would be 75%. We also can say that 1/4 would be 25%. We also can say that here we would have 0.75, and here we would have 0.25. All these answers are correct. It just depends on which scale we do our calculations. For example, here we do calculations on the scale between 0 and 1, where 0 would be the smallest number and 1 would be the biggest number or largest number. And for example, here we are doing our calculations on the scale between 0 and 100, and this is a scale of the percentage. If we need an answer in percentage form, if we do all our calculations, for example, first in this scale, at the end we have to multiply by 100 in order to get an answer in percentage form. So now when we get right of two answers, this is answer A and answer D, we have to choose between these two answers, but this is going to be not an easy task. So now we have to analyze the second question, and the second question is what is the probability that 2 out of 5 children would be affected. In other words, we can say what is the probability that if this family would have 5 children, 2 of them would be males and would be affected. Why I'm saying would be males? Because only males can be affected. 50% of the males would be affected and 50% of the males would be normal, and none of the females would be affected. 50% of the females would be genotypically, phenotypically normal, and another 50% also would be phenotypically normal, but would be carriers. But once again, would be phenotypically normal. So we are interested to find out what is the probability that family would have 2 children of the male sex that would have hemophilia. So let me now clean a space a little bit. So basically now let's find how many variants exist to have 5 children. Of course this can be randomly boys and girls. So this box would represent first child. This box would represent second child, third, fourth, and fifth. So when family would have the first child, what is the probability that this is going to be a girl or a boy? There are 2 variants. Okay, so let's put 2 inside this box. When this family would have second child, what sex this child can be? Once again, we only have choice of 2 sexes, whether it can be a boy or a girl. So let's put 2 inside this box. And as you see, the same logic would apply every time this couple would have a child. Now, in order to find total number of combinations of boys and girls that this couple may have, if they would have 5 children, we have to multiply all these independent probabilities. Each birth of a child would be independent event, and every time there are 2 choices, whether a boy or a girl. So we have to multiply 2 by 2, by 2 by 2, and by 2, and the answer would be the total number of combinations would be 32. For example, first child can be, say, a boy, then 4 girls, or we may have a girl, then 2 boys and 2 girls. So as you see, total number of such combinations would be 32. And let's now list all the possible combinations. The first one would be when a family would have all 5 children boys. So 5 boys. This would be the first type of combination. The second type of combination would be 4 boys and 1 girl. The third variant would be to have 3 boys and 2 girls. So 5 children here, 5 children here, 5 children here, and another variant would be to have 2 boys and 3 girls. Yet another variant would be to have 1 boy and 4 girls. And the last variant would be to have all children who is going to be girls. So couple would have 5 girls. Now let's take a better look at this table. Our question, I want to remind you, was what is the probability that 2 out of 5 children would have hemophilia. Can this family, if they would have 5 girls, have 2 children with hemophilia? No, it's not possible, because as you remember, none of the girls can have hemophilia because they have at least one normal X chromosome. So we have to exclude this variant from our calculations. 5 girls, we know for sure, for 100%, wouldn't have this genetic disorder, this disease expressed. And let's take a look at this variant when we would have 1 boy and 4 girls. is it possible that two of the children would have this genetic disorder. And also we have to exclude this variant because we have only one boy here, and we are looking for two children with this genetic disorder in say such a litter. But next variant is okay because we have two boys here, and both boys may by chance have this genetic makeup, one defective X chromosome and normal Y chromosome. Of course, when we have three boys, we also may have such situations that two boys would be affected, so we would use this for our calculations too, and this genotype, and of course this genotype too. So now let's find the probability of each genotype here, and probability that we would have all 5 children boys would be 1 out of 32. As you remember, we have 32 total number of variants, and only one would be when we would have all 5 children boys. And this also gives us information that this genotype, when we would have all 5 children girls, also would occur with the same frequency, 1 out of 32. Now let's find frequency of this genotype when we would have 4 boys and 1 girl. So let me clean a space. So 4 boys and 1 girl. How many variants we may have? We may have first child a boy, second a boy, third a boy, fourth a boy, and then a girl. Another variant would be a boy, a boy, a boy, a girl, and a boy. And another variant would be a boy, third child a girl, then boy and boy. And another variant would be boy, girl, boy, boy, and boy. So, and the last variant would be the first child would be a girl, and then 4 boys. So let's count how many combinations of 4 boys and 1 girl. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once again, let me circle girls here. And as you see, I just move letter with girl every time one place to the left. So this is how I can track that all variants are present here. So as you see, frequency of this combination would be 5 out of total number 32. And if you would take a close look here, that this variant is basically the same as this variant. Here we have 4 boys and 1 girl, but here we have 4 girls and 1 boy. The frequency would be the same, 5 out of 32. 5 out of 32. And now it would be a little bit more variants here. This would take a time, and I have a shortcut for you how we can find without listing all the possible variants, how many we have variants here. We have to add all these variants, and these variants would have the same frequency. 3 boys and 2 girls would have the same frequency as 2 boys and 3 girls. The probability of occurrence of these two variants, of these two combinations, would be absolutely the same. because boys and girls have the same frequency, the same possibility to be born in any family. So let's add numbers. 1 over 32 plus 5 over 32 would be 6 over 32, plus 5 over 32 would be 11 over 32, plus 1 over 32 would be 12 over 32. So these four genotypes represent 12 over 32. That means that these two genotypes would represent the rest. And the rest would be 32 over 32, so we have to deduct from 32 over 32 this number, and this would give us 20 over 32. And once again, we have to divide that number by 2, because these genotypes are represented with the same frequency. So we are going to get 10 over 32 here and 10 over 32 here. I think this were clear enough. If not, please rewind and listen one more time. All these genotypes represent 100%. Or in other words, we also can say on the scale between 0 and 1, if we add all these numbers, we are going to get 1. So 1 is 32 over 32. If we divide 32 by 32, we are going to get 1. This is how we got these two numbers. We just add these numbers, and from 32 over 32, we deducted these numbers, and then the number we got, we divided by half. So I think now it's clear, and we can move on. As you see, we excluded these two variants because here we cannot have two affected children, no boys here and only one boy here. So for the following calculations, we only would take these genotypes. And let's think what is the probability that among 5 boys, 2 would be affected. And I have a shortcut for you. If you would take a look here, you would find this probability. Here we have 3 boys and 2 girls, and as I stated question, we have to find what is the probability that among 5 boys, 2 would be affected. Let's change this girl to affected and boys to unaffected. And as you see, we have a number here. So we don't have to do calculations, we already have this number. And this is 10 over 32. And this is two independent probabilities. This probability to have 5 boys, and this probability that among 5 boys, 2 would be affected. So in order to find two probabilities to happen, two independent probabilities to happen simultaneously, we have to use a product rule, and we have to multiply these two probabilities. And the answer would be, we have to divide 1 by 32, then 10 by 32, and multiply this two decimal numbers. And the answer here would be 0.00975 and 625. And now we have to find what is the probability that here we also would have 2 affected boys. We have to find what is the probability that if a family would have 4 boys and 1 girl, that 2 of the boys would be affected. So let's move here, and we have combination of 4 boys and 1 girl. And we can ignore this girl because girls cannot be affected. So this time we can concentrate on finding number of total combinations where we would have 2 affected children. So what are variants possible? The first variant would be when we would have 4 boys and all 4 would be affected. So first, second, third and fourth. All of them would express this genetic disorder. The second variant would be when all 4 boys wouldn't be affected with this genetic disorder. Chances are equal. What other variants can be? Imagine that among 4 boys, one variant possible when the last boy would be affected. And of course, we have to keep in mind that this girl can be anywhere here. First place, second, third, but girls cannot have this genetic disorder, so we only concentrate on the boys that can have this genetic disorder. So, next variant, where we may have one affected boy, would be when third boy would be affected. Next variant would be when second would be affected. And the last variant, when 1 out of 4 children would be affected, would be when first one would be affected. And another variant would be when among 4 boys, 3 would be affected. For example, first, second and third. And we would have the same number of variants as with one affected child, but now we would get a reverse picture of what we have here. So first, second and last one would be affected. Now let's list another variant, and this time we would have the first one affected, third and fourth, and the last variant would be when second, third and fourth would be affected. So we listed 4 variants: 4 affected, 4 unaffected, 1 out of 4 affected, 1 out of 4 unaffected. And now let's find our primary interest when 2 boys out of 4 would be affected and 2 would be unaffected. So the first variant would be when we would have 2 first boys affected. In order to track all the possible variants, as you see, every time I just shift 1 place to the right. It is very easy. You may think that this is very hard to track. It is not. So the next variant would be then when the last 2 would be affected, and another variant would be when the first one and the last one would be affected. Yet another variant would be when we would have second and the last one affected, and another variant would be when we would have the first one and the third one affected. So now we listed all possible variants with 2 children affected and 2 unaffected. So let's find this frequency. In order to find this frequency, we have to find the total number of variants. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variants here, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So total number of variants 16, and to affected to unaffected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is frequency of the two affected and two unaffected variants when we have 4 boys and 1 girl. So let's list this frequency in our original table here. So this is going to be 6 out of 16. Once again, because this is two independent probabilities, we have to multiply them in order to find the probability that these two independent probabilities would happen simultaneously. We are going to use product rule, and the answer here would be 0.05859 and 375. I hope you also got this number. Now it would be much easier to calculate. Here we have only 3 boys. We ignore these 2 girls. So let's find what is the probability in a family with 2 boys and 2 girls to have 2 affected boys. So one more time, let's move a little bit. So 3 boys and 2 girls. And what variants are possible? Once again, we ignore girls, only boys may express this genetic disorder. We may have a situation when all 3 boys would be affected with this genetic disorder. We may have situation when all 3 boys would have normal phenotype. Another variant would be when out of 3 boys, 1 would be affected and 2 unaffected. How many variants we have? And as you see, we have 3 such variants. And here is the last one, when the first one would be affected and the rest unaffected. And another variant can be when out of 3 boys, 2 would be affected. And this is variant which we are looking for. And for example, last 2 can have this genetic disorder. And another variant would be when the first one and the last one would have this genetic disorder. That's it. You see how much easier it's now. We listed all the possible variants. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So total number of combinations 8. And out of these 8 combinations, 1, 2, 3 have 2 affected boys. So 3 out of 8 would meet requirements of our problem. So let's put this number in our calculations. So we have to multiply here this probability by 3/8, and the answer here would be 0.1171875. Can we shortcut and put the same probability here, because we have the same probabilities? No, we can't. Here we have 3 boys and here we have 2 boys. So let's once again do our calculations. This time this is going to be very fast. So our last variant would be 2 boys and 3 girls. Once again, we ignore girls. So basically we have following variants here. We may have a boy, both would be affected. Another variant would be to have a boy, and both wouldn't be affected. The third variant would be to have first child unaffected and second child affected, and the last variant would be to have first child affected and the last one unaffected. So as you see, we have 4 variants here, and one variant would meet our requirement when both boys would be affected with this genetic disorder. So total number of variants 4, and one that meets our requirement, this one. So let's put this frequency in our calculations, and as you see, this is 1/4, not 3/8 as in previous example, and we have to multiply these numbers, and the answer would be 0.07 and 81/25. We almost done. So now what we have to do, we have to add all these probabilities. So this probability plus this probability plus this probability. So the final answer, to have 2 affected children in a family of 5 children, would be 0.26 36 71 875, and we have to give an answer in percentage form, rounded to 3 significant numbers. So we have to multiply this number by 100%, because this number is given on the scale between 0 and 1, and we have to give an answer in percentage form, so we have to multiply by 100, and of course round to 3 significant numbers. So our answer would be 26 point, and here we have 3, but because next number is 6, this 3 would change to 4, and this is going to be our final answer today. Of course we would put percentage here, and let's check our answers, and as you see, this is going to be answer B. Those we have 26.3 here, but I believe that professor who prepared this quiz, this test, just used rounded numbers during his calculations, and as you see, when we use large numbers and doing our final rounding of numbers at the end, we got 4 instead of 3 here, but this is a negligible difference, so as you see, the correct answer B. One more time, the probability that 2 out of 5 children would be affected would be 26.3 or 0.4%. Anyway, this number is not exact number. It is not pure math where a number have to be exact. It have to be just approximation. Now I hope you would be able to solve any analogous problems. As I said, 90% of the probability problems now you can solve, and the rest 10% problems that have large numbers. For example, instead of 5 children, if we would have 10 children, we wouldn't be able to solve the problem the way I show you today. In that case, we have to use factorial methods. I have many problems that I showing how to solve using factorials. Just search my playlist. use as search word boys and girls, and you would find those type of problems. And this is all for today. Thank you for your attention. Please subscribe for my new videos that I post almost every day. Thumbs up if you like this video. Please share this video with your classmates, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.